us here this morning. So I would like to kind of welcome everybody. This is Dr. Gino Collura, and I am Michelle Mueller. We're going to kind of not touch any buttons yet. I'm going to turn on a little bit of tunes to get you guys ready to go.
There it is. I like it. I like it, Michelle.
Yes. But in a minute, we're going to shift, and I'm going to share my screen with you. I know we have about 20 people on right now, and we had about 45 people sign up. So let's just give them a few more minutes, because I feel like we're going to deliver something really, really special for all of our entrepreneurial leaders out there.
Love it. Love it.
Looking lean and mean, better than the yellow that I met you with this morning.
I'm telling you, I may be onto something there, though. You know what I mean? Like, just change the look depending on the day.
Just don't come in my house yellow like that. I might have like really bad memories, like paralyze me or something.
It's always great too, like, you know, when you're smiling and it's just nothing but a sea of yellow that's showing up, it's pixelated.
I like the little goatee. I wanted to like pull on it a little bit. It made me feel happy.
Oh my goodness.
Like a little
hey, whatever I can do, Michelle, whatever I can do. If it's a yellow goatee, I got you.
You did it. You did it. You did it for me, Gino. That's why we're here. I'm going to start with kind of why we got here in the first place. The minute I met you, and look at this guy. I mean, honestly, look at the shape, you know, the eyes, the shape. They say that babies, I have 4 of them, so I should know this, but they say people identify with people because of the shape of their face.
Absolutely.
And because of their expression. And through the first time I met you, Gino, honestly, I was starstruck. You're just amazing. And I mean this in the most respectful way. I was just very, very impressed with what you had to say, the way you carried yourself, your passion for entrepreneurs. And frankly, where the bond really was created for me was when we started going through this pandemic with COVID-19, and I couldn't even get my mouth off of the ground. I told you this after I watched one of your webinars. Yeah. And I'll want you to talk a little bit about that, but you came through for me in such a way. I want to tell you, even if nobody else was on that webinar, I want to tell you what it did for me. It gave me hope, and it allowed me to move forward. I was stuck, and I didn't know how to handle everything that was coming at me. And I was so impressed with you and how you were able to carry yourself when we were in such a crisis.
Thank you very, very much. You know, it's amazing, Michelle, that you mentioned that. It's rare, right? Especially nowadays, when we're dealing with an unprecedented time. We really are, right? So entrepreneurs, business owners, folks in the C-suite, you know, we're not afraid of change. We're not afraid of, you know, going up the hill and carrying 80 pounds on our back. But when you have so much uncertainty, there are certain principles that you have to stick to, because if you don't stick with those principles, those are the only things that are guiding you forward, right? And I think it's so important for folks in many different domains, in many different industries, to not forget that, look, at the end of the day, yes, you are a leader. Yes, you are a business owner. Yes, you do occupy the C-suite, but you are a human being. And human beings, right? We're not human machines, we're a being, right? There's a lot that goes in to the ingredients on how to optimize not just yourself, but people who rely on you for leadership. So, and obviously, Michelle, you have done an incredible job at Garden Light. What you have been able to accomplish as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a leader in the community, you are absolutely a rock star through and through. So this is a true privilege for me.
Thank you so much, Gino. And I feel privileged and honored as, you know, kind of the executor of my team. We have nothing, our team without our team. Our team really showed up throughout this 26 years that we've been in business, but especially during this time with the COVID-19, I would say the resilience of our sales team has been awesome. So I don't want to touch any buttons, but I'm wondering, and you can let me know, Gino, Dr. Gino, if we want to shift and show the screen, or if we want to make it more personalized as we get through here. Gino, let's welcome everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for taking the time this morning. We do realize you are very busy. There's a lot going on, but at the end of the day, and this is something that Michelle and I have lots of conversations about, the most important investment you can ever make is in yourself, right? And so being here today, you are exposing yourself to content and to a really good conversation where we're going to be able to provide some nuggets of value for you to consider between my experience with my company's CEO effectiveness and Michelle's experience, obviously, as an entrepreneur, business leader, community leader with Garden Light LED. So a little bit about myself. So I am a serial entrepreneur at heart, right? Before I got into the advisory coaching type industry, I owned 2 businesses, and I had a wonderful run with those businesses for about 8 years. And eventually made an exit out and had a very successful exit, and it was a great time. Took some time off before I kind of got my feet back into the trenches and wanted to help impart wisdom that I learned along the way with folks who are entrepreneurs and business owners. So with that, I was able to earn a PhD in what's called neuroanthropology. That's a mouthful.
What? Yeah, what is that? I was going to Google that, honestly, because yeah, I do have blonde hair, but I like to learn. What is that
For
exactly?
sure.
I know it involves people.
Yes.
So that's cool.
The neuro side, right, is obviously brain science, right? What it is that we're looking at from a neuroscience perspective. And then the anthropology side is culture, right? And so there is an incredible intersection that happens between the culture you live every single day and how that actually gets under your skin and affects your biology. And then also the flip side of that, how your own biology affects your perception and how you see the world and how you interact with your culture. So the whole idea is to be able to optimize both. How do I legitimately make you the best version of yourself, right? And so it's not just the biology and it's not just the culture. You have to bring both of them together.
And, we're going to kind of touch on some of this stuff, and it was introduced to a lot of our entrepreneurs. And I know we have a lot of familiar faces on here that have met Bill Anton, and then also Allison Smith from CEO Effectiveness. They have been at our dealer congresses, and we've kind of introduced this whole idea because Garden Light LED is in the business of building businesses, and just something that's personally worked for Rayto and I. We've been married for 20 years. I'm going to switch over to my slide here really quick. Rayto started Garden Light in 1996, and I came on board with Rayto in 2000. We literally built Garden Light from a 10 by 10 executive suite and a U-Haul space. The 2 of us brought over one of our admins from my previous employer. And today we are a vertically integrated, full-blown manufacturer based right here in Tampa. So we have such a diverse setting between all the manufacturing that we do, the custom development and engineering, and marketing, production. 33% of our workforce is women. But over that 20 years, we've had a lot of seasons. So one of the things that's been such a great support for Rayto and I personally, and we share our story with our entrepreneurs, is we went to a mental health professional throughout some of our marriage, and we accidentally found Mr. Bill Anton. So we are very, very grateful to have him in our lives. His wife is also a psychologist. I get it mixed up between psychologist and psychologist, and help me, Gino.
Mental health counselor?
Yes, psychologist or psychiatrist. But we got married.
Gotcha.
And we had our past. And one of the things that just touched on for me was you take neuroscience, which is the brain, but then our environment, our culture, but we're not dealing with just the environment that we're in today. We're talking generations of environments that we've been exposed to as people.
Right.
So when we come from different backgrounds, and we really felt it, Rayto and I, very intensely, because not only were we married and a couple, but we also worked together and we started building this business. So what's been a great resource and a great tool for Rayto and I is CEO Effectiveness, and having a team of people, specialists, people that understand how to unpack things and help us to become better leaders. So we made a decision to introduce this to our community. And that's how we met Bill, now Gino, but Bill has an awesome book that's called Business Success Through Self-Knowledge. So
Yes.
we kind of want to tap into a little bit of this. I want Dr. Gino to take over from here on this subject, because as I said, we're not dealing with just, you know, a crazy tumultuous time right now. This is one of the most defining economical moments in our existence that we are going to feel. But not only are all these other things permeating and happening, but as entrepreneurs and leaders, we are culturally challenged, we're personally challenged, and we need to understand what's driving some of these things. And so please, Dr. Gino.
Yeah, no, so this is a wonderful graphic that you have here, Michelle. So, you know, if everyone, if you take a look at this iceberg, right, the tip of the iceberg is what we like to call the outward expressions, the behaviors. Now, this is something, this particular approach, Dr. Anton has over 30 years of experience in the clinical realm, right? And outside of what he has been able to do with executives across the country for some very, very large and well-known companies. But you know, again, going back to what we said earlier, regardless of the position, regardless of the responsibility, we're all still human beings. So there's fundamental things we need to know and we need to understand. So the tip of the iceberg is what we all see, the outward expressions of behaviors. What is it that perpetuates those behaviors? They're habits, right? There's things that we do every single day, which kind of creates these neural loops, right? We keep running the same neural circuitry because look, the thing in between our ears does not like being confused. It likes to know what to expect. It likes to know what to anticipate. When we start getting into the unknowns, right, and we don't know what to expect, we don't know what habit or what behavior we need to display to maintain confidence, right? And so one thing that's really important about confidence is to understand what it means. So the Latin prefix is it's confide, right? Meaning with faith. Faith in what? Faith in yourself, right? The belief, the relationship that you have with yourself to have a deeper understanding of certain mental models. Now, I'm going to use that word a lot in our time this morning, but mental models is a very important thing. And essentially, it represents the relationship that we have with ourselves, right? So it's important that we all understand that the upper limit on the quality of our relationship with ourselves will define the upper quality of the relationships we will have with others, right? And so when we think about when we're going through chaos and stress, like we're all experiencing right now, listen, a lot of us, we're in uncharted territory, right? So we don't have a mental model or an understanding of, you know, what to make sense of, how to adapt, how to be able to be flexible and ride the wave that is change. And so it's really important to understand that, look, when you want to start changing your outward behavior, you have to recognize your habits. And you have to recognize that those habits come from your mental models. So we want to get to the very core, right, of that iceberg and figure out where those mental models come from, what are they, and how do we change them to make you more adaptable, which means you're going to be more successful.
Dr. Gino, I have a question for you. So could this also be referenced kind of as our Achilles tendon?
It could be. Yeah. Yeah, it really could. It really could.
And then, you know, to not be afraid of it because it's there for a reason. And, you know, sometimes as a leader or as an entrepreneur, we have our greatest breakthrough on understanding what that Achilles tendon is for us. And then going into it, touching it, reframing it in a different way and using it as a source of power.
Yes.
I look at this slide. I love this slide. When I look at this slide, I see a race. I see an entrepreneur. I see myself at the Kentucky Derby, which I've never been to, by the way. I'd love to go one day. It'd probably be fun to go with all of you guys.
Yeah,
but,
we can put it on the calendar.
We can go. I think we're going to be, I think they're going to actually start opening up these kind of events. But I'm the jockey and everything's up for grabs. Everything's on the line. I'm on the horse. I'm the jockey. I'm about, you know, they raise the flag, they lift, you shoot and you go. You are riding that race, no matter if you're ready or not, no matter if you bump into a horse, no matter if you hit a wet spot, that horse is trained to go regardless of what it runs into. And I see this as the mind and our subconscious and how it drives us. I relate it to that jockey on a horse in a race and everything's up for grabs.
You know, that it's a really good example that you present there, Michelle. I mean, you know, when you take a look at when we're, especially those of us who keep a very high operational tempo, right? Always knocking stuff down, achieving things, growing the business, growing our team. It is incredibly important to understand that at any given time, you are invoking assumptions. Those assumptions feed those habits. Those habits are what feed your behaviors and the outward expression. But more importantly, it's changing those behaviors, right? And so when we think about, you know, how many times have you heard folks say, you know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Especially talking about human behavior and folks being able to change. And they say, listen, this is who I am. This is how I am. Take it or leave it, right? Well, in actuality, that's not true, right? We actually can change, but it all starts with what we like to call at CEO Effectiveness, making the harder choice. The thing you don't want to do, the thing that's going to take more work, the thing that's going to cause you to look at things differently, change the framing that you have when it comes to certain concepts and ideas. It's not fun. I mean, think of it this way, right? So Michelle, you work out, you train, you and Rachel both do. When you start a new exercise, something you've never done before, right? It's typically not very fun, right? We're not as coordinated. We're using some muscle groups perhaps we haven't used before. And we're making a harder choice to do something that is not our norm. Because we know if we do our norm, we can breeze through a routine. But when we make the harder choice to do something to push our body to a pinnacle that it's never been before, then that's growth, right? Now we are able to create a new holistic understanding of what our body is capable of. It's no different for the brain. That it's exactly how the brain works.
And I want to just kind of segue on the fact that this does not happen overnight. I mean, we will continue to have that subconscious mind driving us. We will continue to have those Achilles tendons come up, especially when we have challenging times like we have right now. They're going to surface. They're going to always surface. It's not going to change immediately, but I love the title of the book, Business Success Through Self-Knowledge. It's a journey. Creating awareness is the first step for this, but you know, I want our listeners to have a tangible way, Gino, and I talked to you yesterday about 3 takeaways from this, and I do want to have a call to action because people need mentors. It's just like an athlete, a trainer, having the best coaches, having the team, creating the bonds within the community and working together. I want our clients, the people that are on this webinar, to understand we have a plan, and it starts with awareness. So right now you're kind of might be hearing these terms for the first time, but we're planting that seed for you. And I definitely feel confident because Rachel and I have personally worked with the CEO effectiveness team for over 10 years. I don't even know how long it's been, but when Rachel would meet people, I told you this, Dr. Gino, Rachel would introduce himself and say, hi, I meet with a business psychologist 3 days a week, 4 days a week. My name's Rachel Mueller, and I'd always kick him underneath the table. And I just want to tell you guys, there's resources out there. Lean in right now. We're creating the awareness today, but I know that these guys have a plan, and they want to work with you. They want to have a conversation, even if it's just a conversation. So as we continue to go through here and bring the awareness of how important understanding ourselves especially through times like this is, it's all we got, really.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, yourself's going to come with you every single place you go.
That's exactly right. It is, and it's hard, right? Because the whole concept, when we talk about self-knowledge or personal mastery, it's a loaded term, right? Personal mastery. What does that mean, right? So we're thinking about how it is that we can address what it means for us to challenge assumptions that we have. You have to know what those assumptions are in the first place. So many of us make sense of the world as fast as we can based off of lived experiences up to this point. But we also have to understand there's many ways to cut a pie, right? There's a bajillion different ways to look at something and different perspectives. So you have to challenge those assumptions. And that does start with assessment. You have to assess where you are at. You have to assess what is the process that leads up to you making certain decisions, you managing, leading a certain way, you driving the company culture a certain way. If you don't take a step back and seek to achieve a level of objectivity, right, you're doing yourself a grave disservice. Because, and listen, being objective is super hard. I mean, it really is. Like you're having to scoop out all the bias, right? And it's very difficult.
Give me a tool here real quick for these guys so they can get a takeaway. How, when we're so close to something, how can we know we're being objective? Give us one thing.
Love it.
Please.
Okay. So this is what we call a free list. Okay. This is a very simple activity, right? So what you want to do is you want to sit down. I want you to think about that thing. And I want you to write down the 5 things that are most important to you that go into the ingredients of making up that thing. Once you write it down, I want you to put it away and step away from it for a day. After a day, I want you to go back in and take a look at it again. And then I want you to be able to look at it and say, okay, I've given myself some time. I've put it down on paper. But at the same time, do I really understand why it is that these 5 fundamental ingredients are here, right? Furthermore, let's have a conversation with the team. Let's have a conversation with other decision makers. Yes.
So this could be, it starts with a topic, a challenge, an opportunity, a decision, and then I'm going to dissect that with my free list.
Correct.
I'm going to step away. I'm going to write the 5 most important parts to making that decision or taking that opportunity.
That's exactly right.
Not facing that challenge or facing that challenge.
Correct. And the whole idea is you want to understand what has led up to you prioritizing that thing, because those prioritizations are a reflection of your assumptions and your mental models.
So that's how we can create objectivity, even in chaos, even when we're moving a million miles a minute. How have you been able to slow down, Dr. Gino? Because you're definitely a type A. How do you know you're being objective? How do you know you're making the right decisions?
You know, it's a great question. I will tell you, being surrounded by folks who are high performing individuals and high quality individuals and not necessarily involved in the trenches the way that I am is super important, right? To be able to say, Gino, I see what you're doing, right, from a leadership and a business perspective, but let's talk about the human side of things. Where are you at? All right, what's going on? Talk to me about that, right? The self-regulating side of it, I mean, of course, things like, exercise, meditation, having time in solitude, right? Really being reflective about what happened, what emotions am I feeling across the board, because this is something that's super important, especially for high-performing type A individuals, is optimal levels of performance occur at intermediate levels of drive, not high levels of drive or low levels of drive, intermediate, right in the middle. So what does that mean? That means that you've got to have balance. If you really want to be your best, you have to have balance. So, over time, and it's interesting, Michelle, over time, I've been able to kind of feel like go a little too hard on this thing, pull back a little bit. Or you know what? I need to pick up the pace a little bit here. But it is a constant ebb and flow. There is no recipe that will lead to 110% staying at intermediate. You want to always strive for intermediate levels of drive.
I like that. And you'll be exhausted. It's not sustainable to be functioning on an optimal level, especially when we're in chaos and just the creative side. So yeah. I take that time as well. And I do find that it's very, very important. I've only gotten 2 days in so far this week of yoga again, but I do meditate. There's also Headspace, which is an app that's on my phone. Are you a Headspace
Absolutely.
guy?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. So yes. It literally has many different topics, anything that you're searching for, any emotion or feeling that you're having for the day or anything you're trying to overcome. Headspace is an excellent resource. I also like hypnosis on YouTube. It's free and it's amazing. It's a great time. The hardest part of all of that, I will let you know, is taking time for yourself. It is so hard even when your head is spinning and you have to take a pause to actually designate that time, take a pause. But I promise you, as a leader, awareness, taking a pause, meditating, and I'm trying to circle back around because I really want to give people something that they can take away from this. And then binding yourself with people that are grounded or where you want to go.
Bingo, bingo. It's incredibly important when you're in the energy, right, that is exchanged between human beings is a very real thing, right? The influential prowess that comes with folks that you choose to associate with is a very real thing. So when you're looking at what it takes to have relationships with folks that can say, Michelle, I know you, like, I really, really know you, right? Like, and they can.
And Gino, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you knowing. You know what, Gino? It's safe for me.
Yeah. Yes.
And we all have flaws. We all come from diverse backgrounds. We all have things that are our Achilles tendon.
Yes.
And I think that if we really learn to not shun it and shy away from those things, but rather expose them and become friendly with them, it's going to catapult us into this freedom to be real and vulnerable.
Yes. Well, and that's it. Being vulnerable, right? Being comfortable with being vulnerable. So many of us don't like that. I mean, the idea of pride, ego, all these things get in the way, which is a natural occurrence. But we have to understand that our inner and outer lives are mirrors of each other, right? And so whatever is happening on the external is a reflection of the internal and vice versa. So when we're thinking about what are things that you can do to achieve a level of objectivity, you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Now, we say that all the time, and it sounds really cliche, but legitimately, if you were to take the time and look at, okay, so my team members, for example, my target market, for example, what is their daily life consist of? What are the biggest challenges that they have, and what does it mean to them? Because for me, I could sit there and say, yeah, I see what you're doing. It's not a big deal. This is how you deal with it. To that other individual, it could be a very high top priority because you don't know their conscious, subconscious background, right? And so these are all, but you can only get to that depth of understanding by first having the depth of understanding within yourself, because you're going to recognize that authenticity, and people will read that. If you are not authentic, people can, at a subconscious level, we can sniff it out. That's one thing about our ability to have instincts. You can sense whether it's something that's very small or very large, that is there, especially over time, it becomes more and more apparent.
Nice. And I like this idea. I've listened to some of your webinars, and if anybody's interested after this call, two things. Definitely go on to ceoeffectiveness.com and register. On Friday afternoons, they send out a 5-minute mastery. Yes. And I promise you, it's going to come over to you just in the nick of time, because the topics are different. It takes 5 minutes. It's just something you can remind yourself of, and it's a good influence. Yes. So register for the newsletter on CEO Effectiveness. But then also you can go on YouTube, I believe, and you can go on the CEO Effectiveness channel, and you can see all of the pre-recorded webinars that the CEO Effectiveness team has been bringing, especially Dr. Gino Collura. This man has upped his game. I called him. I said, what are you, special ops? Is Secret Service? How'd you train for this? Because I wasn't ready for this to happen, and I don't know how to show up like you.
Right. Right. It's interesting, Michelle, when you look at the framing of a challenge, the framing of adversity, when we stop, and all of us do this, we get caught in the moment. We think of, oh my gosh, what is happening? What is going on right now? As opposed to saying, what an opportunity for change. Because an opportunity for change means an opportunity for growth. Why? Because whenever we're presented, again, making the harder choice, whether it's voluntary, involuntary, right now in our current circumstances, we don't have a choice, right? So are we going to sit there and make the most out of it and learn and make our organizations that much stronger, make our businesses that much stronger, understand our target markets that much better, and ultimately push ourselves to a level of understanding that will allow us to be that much more fluid and a beacon of light to folks that we serve and we lead? It's an incredible time for that. It really is. Chaos brings out the best and the worst, right? And so we want to focus on the best.
And I feel like, sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you're on this lonely island. You have to make all these decisions. You have all the responsibility in the world. It's good and bad. Mm-hmm. When you're in a time of chaos, and how do you align yourself with the right people? How do you get that mentor, that team? Some of us learn faster than others. Yeah. And if you're one of those super fast learners, then I would say And part of what we're trying to do here is create more people that can influence others. If you're one of those super fast learners, you need to bring people to you. You need to be helping and mentoring, because it's only going to help you become a better leader. But can you circle back a little bit on that?
No, so that's a really good thing. So here's what I tell folks. You cannot sit there and be in a relationship with someone that you want to pour into you to help you ascend to the next pinnacle of your development without being able to have conversation at the level of dialogue. Now, what do I mean by that, right? Well, what is dialogue? Well, if you take a look at what the word it means, it comes from the Greek word dialogos, right? Dialogos means to have an exchange. We are having an exchange of thoughts and an exchange of conversation. That means it's symbiotic. No one relationship, right, is going to be the same. You have to be comfortable. You have to know that, hey, listen, this person understands that I am not just a cookie cutter, another client, right? I have my own nuances. I have my own story, and they take the time to learn your story. Because again, you got to be able to put yourself in the other shoes. How can I help facilitate and push you forward unless I don't understand truly where you're coming from? So when you're looking at having resources, having people around you, who is it you feel comfortable to have conversation at the level of dialogue with, right? Start there and then be able to see what are they doing that I really like. I'd like to understand how they got to that point, and let's have that conversation.
And I think I'm going to circle back on the vulnerability. You know, you're not expected to be perfect. I think that we have this, I'm going to speak for myself. Yeah. As an entrepreneur, I'm supposed to know everything. When my team comes to me, I'm supposed to have the answers. I'm supposed to be effective. I'm supposed to lead. And this is, you know, these are the mental models. Okay. And it's not true. You need to be able to be vulnerable and say, right now, I'm just not there, but I can understand who in my team has these strong suits. Yes. And develop them, give them the freedom to run with their strengths and rely on them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting, the vulnerability part. You know, when we ask people, what do you think the purpose of life is, right? It's a deep question, right? It's something that there's a myriad of answers. But what we like to focus in on is, you know, the purpose, the overarching purpose of every life is to find our truer self, right? Really take off the layers of stuff, right? That's society, different groups we're associated with, different professional accolades. Take all that out, right? Let's get to the heart of who you are, right? And so in order to do that, you have to challenge assumptions. You have to challenge ideologies. Where did that ideology come from? Where did that thought process come from, right? And am I okay with saying, look, that may not be the best way. They may not be the right way. It's worked kind of sort of to get me to where I'm at now. But if I really want to go the next step to where I can lean into the curve, that is change, that is adversity, I'm going to be able to have the understanding because I have the confidence to know that, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable. And it's because I have the confidence to know that at the end of the day, I'm going to be better for whatever happens. That's a tough thing. It's a really tough thing to do. And it does take time.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm finding through this pandemic as kind of a good and bad thing, because it's hard, we have to be honest with ourselves, is kind of, it gives us an opportunity to assess everything we're doing. Everything yes. We thought we knew, everything we want, those things don't change, but the people might, and yes. The environment certainly has changed. But this goes back to that opportunity again of, yes, we need to welcome change. We're yes. built for change. Entrepreneurs have this really thick skin. And I feel like the more that I can get support from people that I respect and that I want on my team, it's like I'm getting that boot camp, that training to be able to assess the relationships in everything that I'm doing.
That's right. That's right. I mean, so Michelle, I ask you, I mean, being a successful business owner, entrepreneur, how many times has your approach to business changed?
It has to change often, because what we think we know, and one of the other things that I highly recommend, and I've really tried to get better about it, is collaboration. Yes. Ultimately, yes, the owner, the leader, there has to be decisions made when it comes to creating strategies, opening new channels, acquiring new software solutions for your company, but never stand alone. Always bring your team in. And I've gotten really, I've tried to get a lot better about that. I have an accountability, 2 or 3 accountability partners, different than my husband, internally here at Garden Light. And then we kind of go together on taking it to Rachel, because ultimately, he makes those decisions. But I have found having a barrier, multiple opinions, and being open to listen helps you weather storms.
So, it's amazing, the ability to listen. That's a really, really big deal, right? There's a massive distinction between hearing somebody and actually listening to what's being said and understanding where they're coming from and why they're saying it. For every successful entrepreneur that I have ever had the privilege of working with and alongside, that is it. You have to collaborate. You have to have transparency. You have to have authenticity in that relationship, because look, many hands make for a light lift. We're not in this by ourselves, right? We have a team for a reason.
So what will you say about this opportunity for entrepreneurs and having the ability to you're saying you might want to look at it and frame it differently. Yes, there's challenges. Yes, it's affecting our health, our civil rights, our vulnerability, our income, our economical status globally, our air that we breathe. What are you recommending?
So, as we go through this time of chaos, right, you have to learn how to manage chaos, because look, chaos, there's micro and macro levels of chaos. Right now, obviously, we've been dealing with a macro level of chaos, but the principles, right, that you should follow to maintain resiliency, they're all the same, right? So first and foremost, like we mentioned earlier, you are the greatest investment that you could ever make, right? Invest in yourself. Never stop investing in yourself, in your learning, in your understanding of others, and in your understanding of your own story. So many folks, when I ask, so who are you? I always am told their name. No. Who are you? And then it's their job title. That's not what I'm asking you. Who are you, right? Those sorts of pensive type questions, they're very, very important, because in order for you to understand what is going to fuel your ability to push through adversity, again, go back to the early mental models, the blueprint that's in your brain at a subconscious level that so many of us never tap into, right? But we have the ability to. When you can tap into that and you have that understanding and you can master that, then you're going to know exactly what it is you need to continue striving for those intermediate levels of drive. And again, those intermediate levels of drive is where the optimal levels of performance happen. So when you think about resiliency, what's it mean? It means being able to look at the fight that's coming and keep a smile on your face and say, you know what, bring it, right? I'm only going to be better for it. My team is only going to be better for it. My business will only be better.
And I think, like, when I'm looking at this slide, I'm thinking of my grandfather. My grandfather was my biggest mentor in my life.
Yeah.
And you know what? The decisions he made, the gains that he had in business, and even before my grandfather, if I go back, we're not resilient on our own.
No.
We've been resilient for generations. And I think as an entrepreneur, one of the things that we also have to take responsibility for are the future generations.
Yes.
And this is our kids, grandchildren, leaving a world that, is healthy and strong and that has the same opportunities. I thank my grandfather every single day because he's contributed to the opportunities that I have for today. I would say we are very resilient as people, and it comes from thousands of years of our ancestors, and we have to remember that and call upon that.
That might it's really interesting. The human race in general, right? If you take a look at us physically, right, Michelle, like physically, you compare us to the composition of other mammals, right? Like lions, tigers, bears, right? Physically, we're pretty frail, right? Like it's not hard to hurt a human being. It's not hard to hunt a human being down in the wilderness, of course, taking it back thousands of years ago. But yet our race has been able to become at the top of the food chain because of what? we have an incredible thing called our brain that operates at a whole different level than any other mammal primate that exists, right, on the earth. So when you think about resiliency, you have got stuff hardwired in here that is thousands of years old that legitimately, I tell folks this all the time, when it comes to stress management, you know, the fight or flight response. I'm sure you've heard that before, right, Michelle?
Yes.
Right. And so the fight or flight response, where does that come from? Right. That feeling you get where it's like you feel something's in your throat, your heart starts going faster, you start breathing faster. Well, your body's preparing, right, to either fight for your life or run for your life. But that was carved. That was something that took time to develop and evolutionize, because look, that response is because we're getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger, and I either have to grab my spear, right, and hit that thing, or run and get away from it. Now, those sorts of responses are happening because of social phenomena, right? Like someone says something bad about me on social media. I'm driving and a police officer pulls me over, I'm going to get a ticket. That feeling you get, that pit in your stomach, listen, you are releasing neurohormones that are there to legitimately protect your life. But so many of us, because we're so stressed out, we're doing that neurohormone dump, and it's all psychosomatic. It's all on our head, because that's how we have framed it. We have framed it to have the significance of life or death. And in reality, it's not. You're gonna figure it out.
And I want to illustrate that is a great expression, because we're hardwired. We don't turn that on. We don't make it happen. It subconsciously happens.
Correct.
And that's part of what the CEO effectiveness team, because we have this going on in our bodies at all times, even when we sleep. But from the moment we wake up, we're figuring out how to survive, how to behave, how to be whole, how to make good, all these things. That's so really tapping into that subconscious that's going to perform, going to drive us, going to do whatever it wants to do regardless, even without being turned on. It's there, it's in us, it's innate, and uncovering that and creating that awareness is just truly part of what is going to really help you make your most gains as an entrepreneur and life in general.
Yeah.
Whether it's parenting, entrepreneurship, it's your person.
Yes. No, that's exactly right. I mean, you know, so it's amazing, because when we think about dealing and being able to frame, right, those responses, you're right, they are indoctrinated. They are part of the fabric that is being a human being. But what triggers those things, right? Now that is absolutely within our control, because that has everything to do with what are we making the conscious decision or effort to focus on, and what's the priority that we're putting on that particular thing. So, you know, it's funny when I look at this particular slide, I love this thing, right? So you've got this big old guy hanging out and balancing on a beach ball, right? He looks like he's having a blast. But the idea of leveraging instability, well, what is instability? Well, instability can be synonymous with ambiguity, right? It's we don't know. It's left, right. We're going back and forth. You want to leverage that, because you want to be able to take a step back and say, man, am I looking at it? If I go too far this way, this is going to happen. If I look at it this way, this is going to happen. You've got to be able to take that, grab it by the horns and say, no. This is an incredible playing field right now, because there's limitless opportunities and possibilities depending on the decision that I'm going to make. But let me put myself in multiple different perspectives to figure out what the end result will be before I make that decision, right? You can call that being strategic. You can call that, you know, being methodical, whatever the case is. But you want to be able to look at instability, look at chaos, look at ambiguity and say, I welcome it. I invite it, because I have a deep understanding of what I am about, and ultimately is rippled into my team, and it's reflected in the folks that we serve as a company.
That's awesome. I'm just kind of processing and trying to think of how somebody who's maybe being introduced to this mindset, they've had things that are pulling and tugging on them internally, and then also external actions, but they are just maybe hearing this business success through self-knowledge, and how really becoming intimate with, you know, your past and understanding your models and how you make decisions in the subconscious mind. Because you know, Dr. Gino, you got to admit it, it's a little fluffy stuff, right? For somebody who's hearing it the first time, who hasn't you know, and I don't want to say hit rock bottom, but hasn't hurt enough. Somebody who hasn't, you know, you might be super successful and you're driving your team and you've got your strategy and doors are opening for you. And, you know, you just haven't had enough, frankly, pain
Yes.
to
Yes.
look in the mirror. How long, like if one of these people that are, you know, on the call today and they say, hey, you know what, I want to reach out to Dr. Gino and Dr. Gino's team. You know, what is it going to look like for me? What am I signing up for? What am I getting into? Am I going to be in this situation where I'm going to have to be accountable? And, you know, how can we package this a little bit to make this palatable for any entrepreneur that's on this webinar? You're here for a reason. And I thank you so, so much, because I feel like we're delivering, and I hope it's been relevant, but I feel like we're delivering a real gift, because there are people, there is a resource, and you want to surround yourself and bond yourself with the community of people that are moving in the same direction. How long does it take, after my long tangent here, how long can, if somebody wants to reach out to you, what does that look like?
So at a minimum, right, we typically, our process starts with an assessment, right? So go back to one of our first slides, assessing. We have to assess kind of where you're at, right? And so how do we do that? Well, we use a tool, an instrument called the NEO, N-E-O, right? So the NEO basically it's a personality inventory, right? And it's something that we use for every single client that we work with. And it paints a picture for us. It kind of lets us know, it's a snapshot of where you're at, right? As far as your priorities, your values, your perception of life. From there, we have a very candid conversation, right? We take a look at what's going on in your life, because, you know, one of the things that you said, Michelle, that really, it resonates is, you know, people not hitting rock bottom, people not feeling the pain, right? But here's the thing with that as well. You've got folks who are incredibly successful on paper, right? But yet they feel inside they've hit a plateau, right? They don't know, how do I get to the next level? What's next? So I've got this successful company, I've got the hundreds of millions of dollars, but there's still something missing, right? And that's because that alignment, right, has not happened. Challenging of the assumptions has not happened, because they got to a plateau following those assumptions, thinking that that's what's going to make them fulfilled. That's what's going to make them happy, right? When in reality, there's a whole lot more that goes into that cocktail.
And I like what you just said, because it's not always rock bottom. Sorry to interrupt. It could be a plateau, but it's and I got to tell you, it's kind of the same thing. It's unfulfillment. It's stirring.
Yes.
You've got a stirring inside, whether it's something that hurts you,
yes,
or it's something that's stopping you.
That's right.
Frame it the way you want to frame it, but it's still occurring internally. And
yes.
Be aware of that.
Well, and when you are a go-getter, when you are all about accomplishing and knocking down goals, and you get to a point where everything you've worked so hard, now it's all push button. Everything's being done. You don't really have to be as hands-on. And you're like, okay, so what now? Right? What does that picture look like? So for us, you know, when we start off with that assessment, we have a candid discussion. Typically, at a minimum, we say 12 weeks. Give us 12 weeks, 1 to 2 times a week. We'll have a session. We'll have a conversation. We do work with folks all over the country. So us utilizing a digital platform is completely doable for us. Though we do obviously do in-person meetings as well. And we do workshops as well. So, but truly the nuts and bolts, right, of working with a high-performing business owner, executive leader, 12 weeks is what we say. Now we have clients, I'd say the majority of our clients, they take it well beyond 12 weeks, and we get into, 6 months to a year, 2 years, 3 years, because they understand the importance of those types of conversations with folks who know their story. They're comfortable being vulnerable with us, right? Because listen, there's no judgment here. We are in the business to build you up. We are in the business to make you better, to sharpen that sword that is you. So typically that is the timeline that we follow.
And there are, of course, the free resources that I mentioned on YouTube.
Absolutely.
So you could always go on there and watch those videos. They're really good. And I'm sure you posted the first few that you released, Dr. Gino, through this pandemic, because I'll tell you what, it was my oxygen. And I'm literally telling you that it was that serious for me. Yeah. And I reached out to you after. I was blown away. I was just blown away.
Thank you so much. That means the world to us. I mean, that is why we do what we do. It really is about making that impact and being able to be a guiding light for folks on the path that they're walking on.
I do want to open it up. If anybody has some questions for myself or for Dr. Gino, we are landing the plane here. We have about 10 minutes left, and I would love to answer anything. If you're watching this and you have a burning desire or anything that's popping up, please ask. Don't hesitate. You can shoot it over, and I'm going to try to not stop the recording here on what we're doing, and be able to facilitate anything that you guys may need. So shoot over any questions that you guys might have. Gino, Dr. Gino, as we are landing the plane here, I'm going to try to be vigilant. If anybody has any questions, we'll bring that up, but I'm going to share your screen so we can see your face. See, this guy. You should mess with everybody a little bit. Put on the yellow for us. Come on.
Now I got to figure out how to bring it back.
I want to see it. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the support that we've been given over the past, probably it's been over 10 years with CEO Effectiveness and Dr. Bill Anton. There's a book. It's super easy to read. It's really small. And I also know it's on Audible. It's called Business Success Through Self-Knowledge.
Correct.
There is also a book called Ascend.
Yes.
There's a workbook, but Ascend reminds me of Annie. Basically, Dr. Bill Anton took some really, really hard things and struggles, and he was able to illustrate it in a way through characters in this kind of tribe, if I can say, of people that are ascending on this mountain and their journey going up the mountain. And this is our life, right? Yes. This is like we're ascending, we're going up a mountain. We have an end destination. We don't know what it's going to be.
Yes.
But, we're ascending. So Ascend by Dr. Bill Anton, phenomenal book. Business Success Through Self-Knowledge. Dr. Gino, you're probably writing a book, aren't you?
Yes, I am. It's in press right now, so it'll hit the shelves probably in September.
Awesome. What's the name of the book?
So it's the 7 Layers of Successful Relationships.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah,
and I know it's going to be really, really good. What I want to tell you is if anybody's on this call right now, I am going to personally follow up with you. Please answer my call. But if you want to talk to me, I am available here for you, and we'll be in the office to answer any questions that you have. So reach out to me. And if you guys reach out to me right now, I'll even send you one of Bill Anton's books and give you our American Entrepreneur t-shirt. By the way, this is the softest t-shirt you're ever going to wear. Dr. Gino, I'm giving you one of these.
I am all in. I am all in. Maybe you'll take away the yellow when next time I hop on Zoom.
It's going to be tight on you because Dr. Gino is
most things are.
Okay, so would you please email a few notes and details of the notes and books? It's been so good. Mary Peterson, absolutely. I love you, Mary. Mary is the godparents for our kids. She's in Seattle, Washington, and owns Northwest Outdoor Lighting. And this is a perfect example of, homeschooled 4 kids, wanted to start her own business. Her husband was in the energy business, and she said, I'm starting my own business. I've educated 4 kids, and guess what? She's done it. She's built 2 phenomenal businesses, learns very fast, is a beautiful teacher, and she comes to our dealer conferences and shares what she knows. So,
I want to kind of augment that as well and just say, look, for folks who are on, if you are currently a business owner or an entrepreneur, or if you're looking to start your own business, trust me when I tell you, you need to pick up the phone and talk to Michelle, right? Michelle has been there, done that. What they do, the culture they have at Garden Light is amazing, right? So for anyone who has an interest, for anyone who would like to understand more about what goes into business ownership, what goes into being a successful entrepreneur, and take those lessons and have the opportunity to start one yourself, I absolutely recommend you get on the phone or email with Michelle.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Gino. Or if you know somebody that's struggling or has lost their jobs. I mean, look, we've got, as long as you're not in the Tampa Bay area or in one of our or in Mary Peterson's area, but if you're looking to start something, or if you have friends that have, want to start over, that have always dreamed of owning their own business, this is what we do. We start people from the ground up and elevate them, support them. We're going to make you go get your NEO and all that good stuff with Dr. Gino. So important. Give us a couple words of advice and some hope for the future, please, Dr. Gino.
You know, so parting ways, this is what I would tell everyone. Do not forget that, listen, even in the midst of all the chaos that is going on, that we all are experiencing, right? Keep reminding yourself, right? What is it you stand for? What is that personal constitution, the pillars that have built you and made you as resilient as you are to get to the level of success that you are currently experiencing, have experienced in the past. And also, don't forget, right, to make the harder choice, right? The decisions, the choices you don't want to make because they feel uncomfortable. Push yourself, because that truly is where the ingredients, the fundamental notes of self-knowledge come into play. And obviously, reach out to us here at CEO Effectiveness. We are here to help, we're here to serve, and we're here to make sure that you get that next level of optimization and success.
Thank you so much. I want to circle back around on your character qualities too. It could be boldness, it could be consciousness, it could be compassion, it could be contentment, it could be decisiveness. I've got a cheat book right here, I have to tell you, because this was given to me by Jean Anton, and I carry this book with me. I have two of them, and I actually was in Willow Woods, which is in California, where this cover was taken. I have this exact same picture.
No kidding.
Define those character qualities that you have, rely on them. It doesn't need to be 10, it could be 3, and then really own them and really build upon those and grow those and share those with your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Incredibly important.
A couple questions and people driving, but I'm available. I am in the office and I am taking calls right now. I'm going to give you my phone number really, really quick. It's 800-511-2099. I'm talking very fast. Call Garden Light LED. Look it up on the web. Ask for Michelle. I'm taking your calls. Anybody that calls me within the next 2 hours, I will be here taking calls. We'll get one of Dr. Bill Anton's books, an American Entrepreneur t-shirt.
And I will join Michelle in that. I will give you all my number as well. So feel free to reach out and call me. Just let me know that you attended today so I can make sure and let Michelle know. So my phone number is 813-352-2080.
You are a very brave man, a giving man. That is his cell phone. So
yes, it is.
We really appreciate you and look forward to more opportunities to share the good news with our partners that there is a resource. Thank you so much, Dr. Gino.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you so much to everyone who took the time to join us today and invest a little bit in yourself.
Have a beautiful day.
Yes, you too.